Uncle. Thank you again. Very inspiring talk. So there's one from Khalil. Let me ask him to unmute. Khalil.
Yes, hi, Yalimadat. I have to go soon, and I was asked to quickly add a comment to this. So the question that will come up is, okay, today are Ismailis required by our religion to actually perform the Zahiri fasting from food and drink in Ramadan? This is the question that always comes up. The answer is actually no. And the answer is no for two reasons. Number one, the requirement to do the Zahiri fasting in Ramadan, it was abrogated by Imam al-Azikri Salam in 1164. But subsequently, for political reasons, the community in the 1200s and onward had to actually go back to performing many Sharia practices as a form of taqiyya. Taqiyya means where you publicly have to sort of present yourself as a good Sunni or a good Ithnashri for survival. So the community did have to re-adopt Sharia practices in about the year 1210, and that continued for many centuries, depending on where they were. Now, the second point of fact, which again nobody talks about today, it's almost as if it's been covered up by people, or people just don't remember. But in the early 1900s, Maulana Sultan Muhammad Shah gave guidance through his representatives to the Iranian Jamat and the Syrian Jamat. At that time, these Jamats were performing Ramadan fasting as well as other Sharia practices. They were praying namaz, they were going on Hajj, they were doing the ritual ablution, the washing before they prayed. They were facing Mecca when they prayed. So this is what they were practicing for centuries. They were still Ismaili, of course, but their Ismaili orientation was reflected more in their beliefs and their philosophy as opposed to ritual. But in the early 1900s, Maulana Sultan Muhammad Shah gave guidance to the Syrian and Iranian and also the Central Asian Jamats. And in that guidance, which was not delivered through a farman, because the Imam couldn't visit those countries, it was delivered through the Mufti Sahibs and the representatives that he appointed. So it's been documented that what the guidance said is that the Jamaat is no longer obligated to fast in Ramadan or perform any of the Sharia practices, such as namaz, facing Mecca in prayer, ablutions, and so on. So from that time onwards, we were talking about the 1910s and 1920s, those Jamaats who were given that guidance, they actually stopped performing these practices in the sense that they're no longer obligatory for you to do to be a good Ismaili. And in fact, that is what happened. The Iranian Jamaat stopped doing these practices. The Syrians stopped doing these practices. The Central Asians stopped doing these practices. The Khoja Jamaat, on the other hand, in the Khoja tradition, Ramadan fasting was never part of it. Like, it was just not part of the practice. And there was no subsequent order to the Khoja Jamaat to ever start doing Ramadan fasting. So this is why today we continue to have no command, no farman or private guidance from Hazri Imam that Ismailis are to fast in Ramadan. It's an optional practice. It's not a required practice. So if you want to do it, you can do it. But if you don't do it, you're not committing a sin. Whereas if you don't perform dua or if you don't give dasong, you are committing a sin because those are obligatory practices. So that's the difference. Now, someone has put something in the chat on the chat here. Why would Prince Zara ask some Ismailis that Hazri Imam? This is like a hearsay anecdote. I don't even know if this is true. But the thing is, whether Hazri Imam himself fasts in Ramadan or not is completely irrelevant to the question, right? Hazri Imam doesn't say dua. Hazri Imam doesn't sing, Hazri Imam doesn't go to ask forgiveness of his sins. So does that mean that we're not going to do those things? We don't imitate Hazri Imam's way of living, and simply because we perform practices for our own spiritual attainment, because we are imperfect and we're trying to reach spiritual perfection. That's why we have Jamati rituals. Hazri Imam is already at the level of spiritual perfection. He doesn't have to perform any ritual. he actually does not pray, despite what people like to believe. Hazrat Imam doesn't pray namaz. He doesn't go to mosques and offer prayers 3 or 5 times a day. He actually doesn't have any ritual practice at all. So whether he fasts in Ramadan, again, there's no direct evidence of what he does. It's a totally irrelevant question as to what we have to do. The obligations of Muslims today has been made very, very clear to us by these 2 imams. And that's namely, we have dua and the sawm, and basically following the farmers. That's what we're required to do. Ramadan fasting has never been defined by the prior 2 imams as an obligation, and on the contrary, Maulana Sultan Ahmad Shah said in his guidance that it's not an obligation to fast in Ramadan. So these are just the historical facts. If you want to fast in Ramadan, that's great, but it would be wrong to say that we must fast in Ramadan, or that in order to be true Muslims, we have to fast in Ramadan. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Khalil. You are a good friend. Thank you again for this great reference. Appreciate it. There was one question from this morning. So, if we fast, is there any problem? And my answer was, if you fast, are you understanding the batin of it? If you are understanding the batin and the purpose of it, good for you. If not, you can just call that I'm on a diet, and it would be exactly same thing. G.
Thank you, I think one thing we need to be mindful of, in our Jamat Khanas now, due to our stance as Ismaili Muslim, in the wider Muslim community, we do not disrespect the fasting either. So a lot of I understand someone's put in here, there's some madlases like, I think Maulana Rojo, we do in the evening instead of the morning in the UK during Ramadan time. And at the same time, I think Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah actually mentioned a few times, I've seen that if we are with other Muslims, or we are in groups, then there is no harm in practicing in similar ways to keep peace between the communities.
Altaf, I wanted to stop you there, and I wanted to add something. So now, are you, because this is very important for us to understand. This is a correction of thinking. So I live in America, and all my friends are Jewish and Christians. So are you saying I should be doing what they are doing? Number one. Number two, also I have Hindu friends and Hindu co-workers. So are you saying I should be celebrating and going to their mandir and start doing that? I believe, this is just my belief, okay? This is absolutely not correct. Respecting is one thing, meaning you don't not mock them. Respect their rites and ritual does not mean start doing their rites and rituals. Alright, let me repeat this. Respecting someone's rites and ritual is a good moment's attribution. Respect. But start doing their rites and ritual, it does not make any sense. Alright, so one more example here, and that is that if you are living in some country where, like Russia, or any communist country where religion is not allowed and no more. So are you saying then we should not even practice our dua, our ibadat, our tasbiyat? Because there is 1 billion people in China. No, my friend. We need to build the bridges for understanding and tolerance, but does not mean we need to cross the bridge onto the other side and start doing what they are doing. We need to follow our Imam, our tariqah, our rites and rituals, at the same time mutually respect their culture and their doing. Respect is not same as doing. So I'm sorry, I wanted to make this correction. Thank you.
my understanding is I fast during Ramadan.
That's perfect.
I've been fasting since I was 10 years old. Is it, even though we might not see it as a Ismaili practice, it is one of the wider community, right? Even if we have our own understanding of the Batuni aspects, and I understand that that fasting doesn't just leaving your food for 12 or 14 or 16 hours doesn't have a meaning behind it in just a spiritual way, but it does also have a physical meaning of sacrifice. Is that not something which all of us have to adhere to, Uncle? Is that not something that we I'm not talking about the spiritual significance of a fast, but many people fast because of its a belief that by fasting you're actually sustaining, you're doing something that is in, mentally or physically, you're stopping or restraining yourself to understand what it is not to eat or to stop yourself from doing. Is that not correct?
Yes, so let me answer, let me fix the question first. So question is, if I'm doing a physical Shariati Roza, are there any benefit to that? That is the question Altaf is asking. Yes, answer is yes. If you understand the batin of the Roza and then doing a physical Shariati Roza, there can be benefits to it. Number two, while you are keeping a Roza and while you are hungry and not having or not able to eat any food, if you are thinking of the people who are poor and who have no food, even if they are hungry and want to eat, they cannot eat because they don't have a food. If you are thinking of them, and then number third, if you are helping them, then your Zairi Roza can be very beneficial and it could help you move to the next level. So keep the Zairi Roza if you want, not for the sake of diet, not because it's obligatory. How those people who are hungry and have no food feels, and then help them. Because if you keep the Roza and feel the hunger and you never help the poor people, then what is the use of Roza? Roza, the hunger, supposed to bring that understanding of how to be without the food and go help them. If you do that, the Zari Roza can be beneficial to you. Thank you, Altaf, for your comment. Do we have any other question? G.
Or there might be I don't know what Khail wants to say. Khail?
Yeah, I do actually have a double question. I'm not sure how much of it I'll be able to get to because I don't want to take too much time. But before the question, I also want to make a comment about the question about someone raised about Niyaz not being available. And I don't know about specifics about which Jamat Khana, like we said, we don't know. But we have seen this from time to time, people who mention, Ismailis who mention that they are fasting in Ramadan, that when they go to take the Niyaz, they don't want to take the Niyaz in the Jamat Khana at that moment, but they want to take the Niyaz home. And, this is just this is completely my personal opinion I'm going to share, but I always found that to be a little bit strange, because even if we don't consider, let's say, the more deeper or higher esoteric levels of Ramadan as symbols, even if we just take it as the idea of austerity or practicing self-control and all those things, I fail to understand how a little sip of niyaz and the sukri is somehow going to, in their mind, would invalidate the whole day of control, right? And to me, this is kind of like that difference between understanding form and meaning. If someone says, oh, I accidentally took a sip of something, now I've destroyed my fast. And all the more so because you're talking about niyaz, which is not even water, if you understand it's nur cannot break your fast anyways, right? Now, these are my personal, I'm just sharing this sense. I was found just slightly strange to say that I'm going to fast, but I'm going to refuse the niyaz that has come from Hajimam, from the tariqa level, to fulfill some sort of sharia level of bodily control. Besides that, my question specifically is, so we have all this information, we have tons of information we can go over,
At the same time, sometimes we go to Jamat Khana and it looks like there's an ambiguity. That on the one hand we're hearing announcements that depending on who's writing the announcements, sometimes it seems like they're giving more emphasis to this idea that we should be physically fasting. At the same time, we have things like Boy Scouts programs or religion class programs. If it's during Ramadan, they make announcements saying how food and snacks are not going to be given. So the optics, it looks like we're being told, since it's Ramadan, there's no food being provided as a snack for the children because it's Ramadan, right? So it's almost like endorsing this idea. But at the same time, we have absolutely no availability of timetables, of schedules, of when to begin, when to stop. There's no sort of iftar celebrations, which is a big part of many Muslim communities, that you break fast together. There's timetables. In fact, when some people ask about how do you know when to start and stop, the only answer you receive is to go ask or to find out from the local Muslim community of what time is sunrise, sunset. Which again, just that very answer there to me is how can we say as Ismailis we should find out our religious practice by finding from some Muslim community what they're doing and implement that. But again, people can say, no, that's not that important because, sunrise, sunset, we can find out however we want to do. But my question is that, do you think this ambiguity where on the one hand it seems like there's some sort of endorsement or encouragement to physically fast, on the other hand there's no sort of community program to sort of sustain that, do you think that's not on purpose, perhaps, that it's sort of to get people to sort of ask questions that should we not, maybe then to research and to find out, do you know what I'm saying? Maybe this ambiguity is there on purpose by our communities, or do you think it's just a matter of that there's no real, I don't want to say no real guidance, but there's no real stand that's being taken, or do you think it is ambiguous on purpose? Because that's part one of the question, and you can see if you can answer. But the second part of the question is, if we know that physical fasting has benefits in a sense of control and all that, and if we also know that we're encouraged to understand the batin of all these things, and batin of course has many layers and levels, why would it be the case that we don't emphasize both very strongly, in the sense that we're saying that it's okay, I know this is a long question because it has a history behind it, but this idea that it was abrogated at a time, in the sense of it's not obligatory. But why would that be the case? Why wouldn't it be obligatory? Why wouldn't it be the case that you must fast physically and spiritually in the sense to get the maximum benefit as a community? Do you understand? Why is it the case that the batin seems to be enough to understand to fast throughout the year, which is what we say we're supposed to do? But as human beings, isn't it the very purpose of the month-long fast to get us to the place where we can fast for the whole life? If you understand my question? So if you can speak to some of those issues, perhaps. I know it's very long, I'm sorry, but if you can speak to those.
So I just pulled down my PDF again, and if you can see, I have highlighted some of this. So second part of your question, why don't we do it? Freedom from the forced law. That's why we don't do it. So if one wants to do it, they can do it. And I'm going to give you a very childish example, okay? So please forgive me, apology upfront. If you wanted to drink milk, is anybody stopping you today? Is your mom calling you every day to make sure you are drinking your milk? No, right? You do it because you know it's good for your bones and you are doing it. Okay? Freedom of the forced law is telling us that it is not forced on you, but if you wanted to do something, do it. Number 3, when Imam says that you cannot come to Jamat Khana, take your tasbih, he has given you freedom. He has given you freedom. That if you cannot come to Jamat Khana, take your tasbih, say your dua, remember Allah. Right? Number 4, if in Jamat Khana or anywhere, the reason that you see different announcement and different way of dodging the question is due to the lack of knowledge and lack of belief. Because they don't understand themselves, they don't know what to say, so they just say whatever they think is right. Number 5, and this is the one you may laugh at if you want to. We don't provide the food for our REC children. Remember, they are 5, 6, 7-year-old children during the month of Ramadan. But you know what we tell them? If you want to bring your own food and drink, you are welcome to do that and eat over here. But we will not provide that for you because it's month of Ramzan. In our simple language, what we call that? Hypocrisy. All right, let's come to your first question. And if I remember your first question, if you keep the roza for the purpose and if it's good for us, like I said, if you can think of the batin and the purpose behind the roza, and if you are staying hungry, and if you can feel for those who stay hungry, not by choice, because they have no food. And because if you feel that in your heart, and if you have the tears in your eyes when you are hungry, thinking of those people who are your brothers and sisters in the Jamat who are hungry all over the world. And if you do something about it, this can be beneficial to you and to your Jamat. And the roza that you kept will give you some sort of happiness, enlightenment, understanding, and will elevate you because you felt for your brother and sister in the Jamaat. If you are just keeping roza and not doing anything else, then to me, and again this is just my opinion, you may as well be on a diet. And that's my answer to both of your questions. Ji.
Thank you, Aziz. One more question here.
Yeah, Yali Madad.
Ji, Yali Madad.
Yeah, it's Rosina speaking. Yeah, मुझे राजेश सर ये पता करना है कि हम रोजा जब बोलते हैं तो हमको जैसे कि मुस्लिम कैलेंडर के हिसाब से जो हमको टाइम टेबल दिया गया है उसके हिसाब से खोलने लेगा या फिर हमारे जो मगरिब के टाइम के हिसाब से.
Okay, very good question. Appreciate this question.
Thank you.
I was thinking about this one a minute ago. So what Khalil said and what Kial said, that it is so sad that we have to go outside and someone has to tell us when to drink milk, baby food, take a shower and sleep. Because we don't know when to open the roza and when to finish the roza. That is the sad part. And who gave them the authority to tell you to start at 7:05 and end at 8:05? Who gave them the authority? Is this authority from Allah, from the Prophet, or from the Imam? Why don't you just call me? Or ask Mukhi Sahib? Or ask your parents? Who has given these people authority to tell you when to start and finish? Now, if you really wanted to hold a roza, and think about it that you are living in Alaska, North Pole, in summertime, you will be keeping roza from 4:05 in the morning until 1:05 in the morning. How many hours is that? 21 hours. That would be true roza because that is a farman. That is from the sunrise to sunset. The true roza should be sunrise to sunset. You do not have to ask anyone. But would you be able to do that in summertime? And what about the winter time? Again, the North Pole. Your roza will start from around 12:05 in the afternoon to 3:05 in the afternoon. Because that is said from sunrise to sunset. Do you see that? Now, what about tomorrow we start to go to the moon and Mars? How long your roza would be? Because there is too much problem in the Shariati roza. Roza is of the batin, not of the Shariat. If we are following the Shariati Roza, we're going to run into these issues and problems and questions. And again, that is a huge issue and problem. So be careful of the Shariati Roza. Ji.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for asking. I was thinking about that. I truly appreciate it. Yes.
Thank you.
So one first question is very, very small. So this hadith and Nabi, that's on the bottom of the screen. Shariat is my sayings, tariqat is my actions. Is there a citation for this? I couldn't find it anywhere.
Ji, Kayal, would you be able to send the references quickly? Yes, sure, definitely.
Sure. Okay. And second question is like my real question. If, I remember you kind of showed a verse in the Quran that said, "Oh, you who believe," and you kind of talked about how. Yeah, can you go to that real quick just so I can see it?
Yes.
Okay. And then there was another verse that you showed later on that was similar. Like if you see Ramadan, then fast it.
Yes, that's 185 right here.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I just wanted to see those again. Thank you.
Yes. So remember, the answers to our questions are normally, you will find it in Quran, in AZIZ, in the Faramin, or the Dais and Hujjatan's books, or Peer's Ginan. Is scattered all over. The answer is right in front of our eyes. We just have to read and mature ourselves in the ilm and learning. Thank you. You sounded very young, sir. I truly appreciate that you are listening and investing your time in the knowledge. Thank you.
That's fine.
Okay.
So
If not, we can stop here. And my truly my prayers are for everyone that Mola give us haqiqati samajh, elevation in our understanding of our tariqah, elevation in our batin, elevation in our intellect journey. And may Mola be with you every time you have a question. May Mola be with you to answer it. That is my prayer for all online. Thank you, Altaf, and I truly appreciate again for your effort and your time that you put into these sessions. Yali Madad.
Thank you. I think you answered it very well, Aziz sir.